Hey, what's up everyone? Johnny the Geek here. Welcome to this video on how to do a RMA with Gigabyte motherboards. And so this for the most part should work for many different manufacturers. Obviously other websites, manufacturers website will have different sort of options, and their websites are going to look different, but for the most part the process is relatively the same. Now, how did I come to determine that this computer here requires a motherboard RMA? Well, there are a lot of different factors, and that's what I'm actually going to be going through and telling you all and showing you what I did to sort of test some things out, as well as determine that I'm going to be sending back the motherboard, and I'll be taking everything kind of apart here for the most of it apart, and then boxing it up and shipping it out, and then showing you from the computer side of things, the web page sort of thing, on how to create an RMA and process the RMA. All right, and so let's talk about the system here itself. This particular system, and I'll go ahead and start opening it up, is a Hackintosh build, right? So I built a couple of these systems for the purpose of being solely a Hackintosh, right? And it worked for about a year, and for whatever reason, I'm not sure exactly, I'm guessing the going into the sleep mode and the sleep states might have messed some things up, because I know that has to do with power to the chips, the CPU and the motherboard, and so maybe that kind of the sleep mode in a Hackintosh per se kind of messed things up a little bit, right? And that's my kind of guess, right? I don't really know for sure, but anyways, what happens here is that when you have the power plugged in, even though you hit the power button, nothing happens. And even when you do the power button right up on the top right here, pressing it, it's supposed to be lit up even when you have the power supply plugged in, and the light should be on, all right? And if the power supply is switched on, and I'll go ahead and grab a cable right here and plug it in and kind of show you what I mean by all that. All right, so here I'll be plugging in the power there, right? And it's on the circle, and then when you flip it on to the line, which means that it's switched on, this should be lit up, and it's not right now, right? And even when you're pressing it, no power, nothing kicks on, nothing turns on, right? And so another indication here is that when you hit the clear CMOS button, it kind of flickers, right? And you can kind of see it there. See it kind of flickering there, right? That's not supposed to happen. That's not normal. And so one other thing that you can sort of determine or kind of guess is that maybe the power supply is blown out and it's not supplying power to the motherboard and the rest of it, right? And so one way you can test that is with one of these right here, which is a power supply tester. Now, this isn't exactly the most accurate or reliable or readouts of a power supply tester. This is kind of cheap, right? These are usually around $15 to $20, and there's many different kinds. It gives you sort of a good generalization whether or not your power supply works. Usually I just test it to see whether or not the power supply turns on or off, and if there's major power outages here through the lines here of the 12 volts, primarily the 12 volt lines, right? The 5 volt lines, really not so much. As long as the 12 volt lines are still working, that's how I kind of determine that the power supply is working. So how do you use one of these things? Well, basically you take the ATX power connector here, right, from the power supply, and then you plug that in to the power supply tester, and it's pretty easy. It's slotted so that you can only plug it in one way. And when you plug this in with the power plugged in, and you can turn this off if you want, you just want to be sure and safe that you don't blow anything out while you're plugging it in, you can go ahead and turn it off. So then I'm going to go ahead and plug this in now. like so, right? And so what I'll now do is I'll go ahead and flip this on, and that pretty much kicks on the power supply. I know that it's turning on now, and then there are such things like the hard drives turned on, the optical drives turned on because it gets power now, as you can see here, right? So the power supply is on, and it's turning other components on, components that's plugged into. Don't mind that there's a 5-volt here line that's a little messed up. I'm pretty sure my power supply tester isn't entirely accurate, right? And so if you don't have these power line or power supply testers, what you can do is also now I suggest that you look this up because I don't remember what pins they are exactly, right? And so what you do is you find the right pins, and I'm pretty sure one of them is green. Again, I could be wrong. That's why it's very important that you look it up, and don't do this unless you're entirely sure what pins to be doing. But if you follow this green line as well as another black cable, right? When you connect the two, like I've seen people use a paper clip. I don't know why they use a paper clip. That sounds very dangerous. But you can connect the green and a black wire, and I don't remember which black wire exactly. So look it up, and when you connect the two, it will kick on the power supply, much like what I just did with the power supply tester, right? So that's how I have determined that it's not the power supply. Another way too is if you have another power supply, what you can do is plug that in to the whole system here. You don't necessarily have to remove the old existing power supply. You could just kind of have the other power supply out and plug it in to the motherboard. Just the motherboard only is really all that you need, and hit the power button here or the power button on the front of the case, and things should kick on. At least your power supply should kick on. So the same thing, I plugged in another power supply and it didn't work. So that's when I just went ahead and said, well, I've determined that it's the motherboard. If the graphics card wasn't working, or the RAM wasn't working, or any of the drives wasn't working, hitting the power button on the motherboard should at least turn on the power supply, right? So that's why even if the CPU is blown out or dead, you should be able to still hit the motherboard. The motherboard should fire up, go through all of the checks that it does, and it'll beep at you, give you error codes here saying, you know, the RAM doesn't work, or the PCI Express slot doesn't work, or the CPU isn't working, or anything like that. It'll give you a readout there, right? And so since I can't get to even that part, that's when I'm deciding that this particular motherboard is malfunctioning, and that's why I want to do an RMA. Now, with all that said, right, hopefully you found that somewhat useful. Now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to go ahead and remove some key components here. I'm not going to be removing everything like the drives or the power supply. I'm going to be removing the GPU, CPU fan, RAM, obviously unscrewing it, taking it out, boxing it up. Oh, and boxing up the CPU, removing the CPU carefully, right? And boxing it up properly to send out into the mail, right? So now that's what we're going to get into. Okay, so I just realized that for those of you who built your own system, you probably don't need to really watch how to take it apart. You can go ahead and skip ahead to the part where I'll be actually doing the RMA with the Gigabyte website. But for those of you who maybe bought the system off of somebody or a business or something like that, and you no longer have support from them, and you want to take it apart yourself, then by all means continue watching. So with that said, here we go. We're going to go ahead and start by unplugging the GPU, as well as pretty much anything else we can unplug. And for screws, after I unscrew something, usually I'll kind of screw it back in. So here we have to flip this little switch here, and then we can take out the PCI card. Come on, you. What's going on? So screw here. It's obstructing the PCI slot. Right? That was easy. Okay. Oh, and by the way, anti-static wrist strap. Can't be too careful. Plus, I'm on a carpet right now, so it's good to have. Right? Let's see what's next. Yes, unplugging more stuff. We'll go ahead and unplug the CPU power. We'll just set that aside. We'll unplug this little fan here. Everything you want to unplug, you want to kind of pull straight out. Say, for example, this USB 3.0. Just want to pull straight out. Make sure that there isn't any type of button you have to press to take this out. Oop. Alright. That. Disconnect the fan. And then we'll disconnect the front panel connections here. Again, pull straight out. And we'll do the same for the audio cable. And you want to try to grip it from the actual connector, the plastic connector, from this side here, right? Grip it, pull it out. Don't just pull out from the actual cables here. You could rip out the cables from the actual connector, so be careful with that. Set all this aside here, and then the SATA, you need to press a button, and you gotta press that button to take that out, right? And so now the CPU actually, the CPU cooler, this particular fan here has these two little notches. Yours might be different. This is the Evo Hyper 212, right? And you just have to kind of, it's easier if you actually take this off with the motherboard out. You don't necessarily have to take this CPU cooler off with the motherboard inside the case, right? But I'm gonna try it anyways, and this is a good way to hurt yourself and cut yourself because these fins are sharp. So go ahead and get that out. Right, so here is the CPU fan. Again, straight out. Alright, then we can go ahead and we will take the CPU cooler. Normally, when you take out, or when you install the CPU cooler, you want to do unscrew or screw things in diagonally first, but since we're taking it out, it don't matter. So there's one. This one doesn't seem to cooperate. Oh, there we go. There's the second one. Oh. Well, that one's kind of spinning the socket that it's in, so that's going nowhere fast. All Alright, well, this is going to be an issue because the socket here doesn't want to cooperate. So we're going to have to leave that. But what we can do is take out the memory. So hit these little tabs here. Be careful, don't bend it back too far because you'll break the tabs. So the RAM is out. Everything's unplugged and disconnected. We can now unscrew the motherboard. That's it there, that's it there. And we'll screw here. Alright, so that's about all the screws. Now, because I didn't really, actually, let me just screw this down temporarily. Screw that in a bit so that it holds. Can now take this out. Easy, easy, like so. Right, and we'll set this down in a safe manner. Alright, so let's see what the issue is here. I'm gonna need to have the socket so that I can unscrew all of these. Came with the CPU cooler, and so let me find that real quick. Alright, so if you don't have the actual socket to take this out, you can use some needle nose pliers, but please be very, very, very careful. I mean, really take the time and try to look for a socket that will work with this, because you don't want to accidentally hit one of these microchips or these little soldering points or diodes, any of that stuff. Right, be extra careful. Only use this as a last resort if you can't find any other tool. Right, and it really just needs to get loosened up a little bit, and you shouldn't really be propping it up like this either. Like I said, if you can get somebody as a helping hand. So once you get all that out, what you can do is that you can just lift this out. Or try to unscrew it. Gonna have to get a little inventive here. Again, be extra careful. All right. Whew. Look at that. All right. So now we're going to take out the rest of these sockets and the back plate. the back plate is out. Now we can go ahead and take out the CPU. Alright, so now we're ready to remove the CPU, and so we have our CPU plastic holder here. This is what originally came in with the box, and so you can go ahead and open this up like so, and be mindful of a little bit of thermal paste that's on the bracket there. We'll get to that in a second. And so what you want to do is you want to just pick this straight up. You can kind of pinch it. Again, be careful of the thermal paste and make sure you get a good grip on it, because you don't want to drop it on those pins there. Right, so we'll safely stow this away. You're going to get thermal paste all over on the plastic here, but that's fine. I'm kind of lazy right now. I don't really want to clean this off just yet. I'll do it later. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to put this back down. And it's very important that you held on to this little bracket. You cannot return this motherboard without this little bracket. If you return the motherboard without this bracket, this little cover here, you will void the warranty. They will send it back to you and say, nope, sorry, you just voided the warranty by not sending this thing with the cover, right? And you go ahead and you can snap that on, but again, I need to actually clean this little bit of thermal paste that's on there. I'll be using some isopropyl alcohol. Right, so here we have some 91% isopropyl alcohol, and we're going to go ahead and take a little napkin here. It's better if you use something like a coffee filter, but actually you don't really need, for this particular purpose, you don't really need to be lint free, but I'm just going to go ahead and lift this up, and it's a very delicate operation here, because again, you don't want to harm the pins. And I'm just going to go ahead and wipe this up here. Like so. A little bit of a thermal paste. Or thermal compound in this little nook and cranny right here. Alright. That's good. So now let's get this cover back on. Oh, okay. Goes right on there like that. Some covers go on the outside of the bracket here. This one particularly goes inside. So you have that open, kind of just drop it straight down, fits in just like a puzzle piece, right? It doesn't require a whole lot of force to go in there. Then you close this up, and bam, you're ready to box this up and ship it out. Now, before you do, it is very important that you get the serial number, right? That is right on the side here. Sorry, I can't really show you what the serial number is on mine, but it's on the side of the ATX power, and it's very important that you get the serial number off of there. It's more reliable if you get it off of here. It's also on the box, right, where the UPC code is. This particular box actually isn't the right box for this motherboard. It does not match the serial number on this particular box. And if you don't have the original box, it's okay, right? You don't even need to really send the box that's on the outside here. You could just be sending in this portion of it, which is probably what I'm going to actually be doing. And so take this and go ahead and open this up. You can also remove anything that came with your motherboard. So just looking like this. I've got the serial number written down somewhere. And I typed it. So you wrap this up. So all of this stuff here, take out, and you can keep it because they don't want it, and you might not get it back. So you might as well keep it. Who knows? They might send you another set. You might be lucky. Oh. Oh. Just keep the sticker. So you drop this in there like so. Close this up. And you don't just mail this box. You got to put it in another box. And you're ready to ship this sucker out. Alright, so here we are at the Gigabyte RMA website, and the website is rma.gigabyte.us for those of you who are here in the US. And so once you're here, you can either log in if you already have an account. You click on user support and then you go ahead and log in. However, if you don't have an account, you click on register. It's pretty straightforward. You fill all this info out, and then that'll send you a confirmation type of email. You click on it to activate your account, and once you get in, you can go ahead and log in. So once you're logged in here, what you're gonna do is you can check out some of this info where the workflow could tell you how to do stuff and how things work in terms of returning and getting support and whatnot. Warranty terms, what they cover. You can check the warranty by entering in the serial number of your particular motherboard, and they show you here how to look up your motherboard, which is on the side of the ATX power adapter plug, right? And then you do have to, just to make sure, you do have to include the SN, which stands for serial number. I don't know why you have to include that, but whatever, you have to. All right, and then you can do request repair and RMA status to check up if you've already submitted an RMA. All right, so we'll go ahead and check the warranty. And so let me bring up my serial number here, and forgive me for having to sort of blur this section out here. So it's SN, and we are in USA. Click on submit. Alright, so it just found the warranty information. I am still within warranty until 2015, and so what we can now do is we may request a repair for your product online. So you're going to click on request repair here, and it's going to already propagate the info here, the shipping address of your profile that you've set up, right? And you can have multiple shipping addresses if you want, or you can have a UPS FedEx account if you got all that technical fancy stuff, so you can do some tracking. Click on next, right? And it's going to want you to input your serial number once again, and so I'll go ahead and do that, right? And once you type it in, just click anywhere outside of the box, and it's actually going to look up the model name for you and actually fill it in into the model name here. It's also checking to see whether or not the warranty is still valid, right? And then you're going to put in the problem description. So for me, this particular motherboard doesn't want to start up, or does not want to power on. So I'll say motherboard does not power on, power button does not light up on motherboard, right? And tested power supply and works. Also tested motherboard with other power supply and does not work. Maybe I'll actually put that under memo for the tested stuff, right? Let's see, does not turn on. So we'll click on add to repair list. Then if you want to come back and edit it, you could. Clicking on that. Then you could click on save. Then you click on next. And then your request has already been submitted. We will check it ASAP, reference number, yada yada. You can export what you just submitted, and it's waiting for approval. So now, I don't know if you heard that little chime. That was my phone. I just got a notification saying that I submitted a request. Now we play the waiting game, and when they get back their hours, I think they work from Monday through Friday, so it's going to be a few days before they accept the RMA and actually have you mail in the product, and there's going to be more info and shipping labels and whatnot on how to mail the product. Alright, so we've got the Gigabyte RMA request approval here. It really only took about 1 business day. However, it's taken me about a week to just finally get to this, making the second half of this video. But it's approved, and basically you have 30 days that this RMA number is good for. So you're going to have to mail this thing in within 30 days, and they got to repair it and do all whatever it is that they got to do with it. And 30 days is plenty of time for you to mail this thing out. And so they also include in here 2 things that you should be printing out. And the first thing is a system configuration form. They basically would like to know what's in your computer system, you know, the CPU, the graphics card, the memory, and the operating system, how many hard drives you have, the power supply, other accessories and stuff like that. It would just help them better determine what might be going wrong with your system. All right, and also to put the problem description, just type it right down in there again, so that when the technicians open up the box, they'll kind of already know, or they can read right off the paper there and get to it quicker, rather than probably having to go look up your case file and stuff like that and checking out to see what's wrong with your system. All right, so definitely print that out. It's not mandatory, and if you don't know some of this stuff, it's not like, you know, it's gonna not help. But if you don't know any of this stuff, see if you can get somebody to help you fill out what components you have. But it's not mandatory. All right. So the second form is actually the label. So you can go ahead and print this out. Makes it very convenient, nice and clear. Has your RMA number right on it already. So print it out, stick it on the box. And speaking of which, I have the box right here, and I'm using priority mail. And if you do have a box that will fit this motherboard, I recommend that you get a regular cardboard box if you can get one for free, and use that instead and send it first class, because it'll probably be cheaper, especially if you're in the West Coast or California in particular. This company, where you're sending it to, is most likely going to be in California. I'm not sure if they have other facilities across the nation, but if it does go to California and you live in California, then use first class, right? Find a box for free that this would fit in. If you're from somewhere else, then you could probably use priority, I guess, because it should be one rate, the same rate. I'm doing this because I don't have a spare box, and I don't want to go look for one to try to get one for free. And if I were to buy one, first class would be about $9 or $10, and then a box would probably be like $2-3. It's going to end up being the same as just sending it priority. So that's why I'm sending it priority, right? And it fits right in here. This is a medium flat rate priority box, right? And it fits right in here, and I don't have to add anything. Maybe I'll add some newspaper or something, just one little layer in there so it doesn't move around so much. And that's sufficient, because I've sent the motherboard using that medium-sized box just the way it is, how you saw it there, and it worked out just fine. So next, once they repair it or do something with it, they're going to notify me in the email, and I'm going to show you what it is that they tell me. They're not really going to tell you what's wrong with it exactly, but they're basically going to tell you whether or not they're able to fix it, or they have to send you another motherboard, right? A whole new motherboard, or maybe a refurbished motherboard or whatever that would have a different serial number. All right, and so we're back. So it's been about a week since I've mailed the product, and in between then I've received an email saying that they received the motherboard. That's it, that they just got it. Right, they haven't worked on it or anything like that. And about 5 days after this email, I got an email saying, hey, they fixed it, or they've done something to it and they're gonna be shipping it back. Right, they're done with doing whatever it is they gotta do to it. And in between all of this, you could actually check the status if you really want to know what exactly they did to it. You go back to the RMA website, you go to user support, you click on there, and then you're going to go to RMA status right here, and you're going to type in either the reference number if you have it on hand, or the serial number, whichever one, or the request date, or by the RMA number. Many different ways for you to find your RMA here, and then over here on the right it has the RMA status and what exactly went down with it and what they did. It's general, it's kind of vague, they don't really tell you why the thing failed, but in my case it was a BIOS error. They reprogrammed / replaced the BIOS chipset, and that's super vague. I kind of would like to know exactly what did they do. Did they just clear the CMOS? Because I tried that, I don't know, but whatever. Anyways, so that's pretty much it. This is the process for doing an RMA with Gigabyte. It is, for the most part, somewhat similar. You know, the steps are kind of the same order of things of how you do an RMA with other manufacturers and other various components. Obviously, websites are going to look different, and then how you ship back the actual item might be a little bit different. And so here is the actual motherboard in the flesh. Right, they shipped it to me, obviously not in just this box alone. It came in another box with all the packing peanuts and stuff like that, and it's just the motherboard, right? Only the motherboard, and it came in a different box. So don't freak out that they sent you the wrong motherboard or anything like that, right? They're just trying to recycle, reduce, reuse old motherboard boxes to send back to you and whatnot. And so I'll be plugging this motherboard back in, installing it, and I will have a sort of a time-lapse speed through video. It's essentially the same of what you just saw me do to remove the motherboard. It's just, you know, everything in reverse, right? So that's what you're gonna see me do now, and I'm gonna fire it up to make sure that it actually does work and get into the BIOS. And so that pretty much concludes this video. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.